Don Knotts made millions of Americans laugh, but behind that nervous smile and perfect comic timing was a man carrying pain most people never knew about. To television audiences, he was the unforgettable Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show. Funny, awkward, lovable, but off-camera, Don Knotts was fighting battles that began long before Hollywood ever called his name. He was born in 1924 in Morgantown, into a home filled with fear, instability, and poverty. His father struggled with severe mental illness and alcoholism. Some nights were so frightening that young Don learned to move silently through the house, just to avoid confrontation. What made it even sadder was this: comedy became his escape. While other children played outside, Don created imaginary characters in his head. Little performances, tiny worlds where people laughed instead of shouted. Years later, those same survival instincts would become the very thing America adored about him. But the emotional scars never truly disappeared. As a teenager, Don was small, thin, and painfully insecure. He often felt invisible. Even after becoming popular in school, something inside him still whispered that he wasn't good enough. And that voice followed him for decades. Then came World War II. Most people assumed the military would reject him because of his fragile appearance, but instead, he was assigned to entertain troops overseas. During that time, he slowly discovered something powerful. He could make exhausted soldiers laugh in the middle of chaos. And that changed everything. After the war, he arrived in New York City with little money and huge dreams. Rejection came fast. Radio jobs turned him down. Opportunities disappeared. 4 years, success stayed just out of reach. Until one role changed television history. His chemistry with Andy Griffith became pure magic. Barney Fife wasn't just a character anymore. He became part of American culture. Viewers couldn't get enough of him. But behind the scenes, Don was unraveling. Fame didn't silence his anxiety. In fact, it made it worse. He struggled with insomnia, depression, and dependence on prescription pills. Friends said he could swing from joyful to deeply troubled without warning. Some believed his painful childhood never stopped haunting him, even at the height of success. And then, everything changed again. Health problems began to take over. A diagnosis of macular degeneration slowly stole his eyesight. Later came lung cancer. Yet even during his hardest days, those closest to him said Don still tried to make people laugh. That may be the most heartbreaking part of his story. A man who spent his entire life giving joy to others, while quietly carrying sadness of his own. When Don Knotts passed away in 2006, one of the last people beside him was Andy Griffith. Their friendship had survived decades, fame, and hardship. And in those final moments, it was laughter, memories, and love that remained. Maybe that's why people still remember Don Knotts today. Not just because he was funny, but because behind the comedy was a deeply human story.